Thanks very much for being here. What are you hoping to get from Bill Taylor or learn from him?
We need to know more information about who all was involved in Rudy Giuliani conducting foreign policy with Ukraine, who told the president that this was wrong, and why was the president outsourcing American foreign policy to his personal lawyer.
Why does the president need to be told it's wrong?
Well, he doesn't. I mean, he's abused his office. Frankly, the president's phone call and transcript with President Zelensky is enough to understand that he abused his office. But the question is, to what extent was the corruption? It doesn't seem like it was just a phone call. It seems like there was a systematic attempt that went over months where the president tried to pressure Ukraine to investigate Biden. Many people were involved. Many people tried to push back. And those facts need to come out so that the American people understand the extent of it. This was not just the president misspeaking in one phone call. This was a deliberate strategy to investigate a political rival.
And during that text exchange, Bill Taylor tells Ambassador Gordon Sondland, I said on the phone, I think it's crazy. Are you going to be getting to the bottom of what he said on the phone and who he was talking to, and whether or not Gordon Sondland's testimony lines up with his from last week?
I do. I think those are all questions that Chairman Schiff and our counsel will ask, and the Republicans, of course, will have the chance to ask as well. But my hope is that he will just shed light on the facts and explain why it is that he felt pressure, where the pressure was coming from, whether he thought there was a quid pro quo or not.
Earlier today, Brad Smith, one of your colleagues, was on CNN talking about impeachment, and here's what he said.
I have enough information. I will sit in on the meetings because it's historic. But the public testimony is everything you need. You have the transcript. You have the chief of staff statements. It's obvious that the president of the United States was trying to force the Ukraine to help his political campaign.
Brad Sherman. So Brad Sherman says he has enough. Do you have enough?
I do, and I agree with everything Brad said, but it's still important that we do the investigation and we build a case so that we can convince the Senate and maybe some Republican colleagues. We've seen now a break. I mean, Francis Rooney, who's announced his retirement, said he's open to impeachment. You even had Lindsey Graham saying that if there was further evidence of a crime, he's not ruling it out. We've heard informally a testimony or actually conversation that Republicans aren't as strong as they once were. So the more we can build the case, the more we may be able to convince some of the Republicans to do the right thing.
Let me ask you more about that. Why don't you think they're as strongly behind the president as they once were? Are you personally having conversations?
Well, one, there's a large disappointment with the president's decision in Syria. Many Republicans feel that that was dishonorable for the United States to abandon our Kurdish allies who fought shoulder and shoulder against ISIS. It's the most critical I've heard some of my colleagues be about the president. There were many Republicans who were scratching their head with the president's decision to have the G7 summit at one of his resorts. So what I've seen, candidly, Katie, is that Republicans are more willing to speak out against this president than any time that I've been in Congress over the last 3 years, but they aren't yet willing to say, let's have an impeachment inquiry. But just the change that they're willing to criticize the president privately and publicly is very different than things were even 6 months ago.
Well, let me ask you about how the Democrats are going about this. I know the reasoning, I've been told the reasoning behind why these depositions are being taken behind closed doors, sort of like a grand jury is the way that I've been told to think about it. But are you sure that the American public is going to get everything it needs in order to make an educated decision? Is it a good way to get the public information through the leaks, the bits and pieces we're getting from reporters after you guys hear the testimony from various witnesses?
Well, Chairman Schiff has made it very clear to all of us who've ever been in that room not to have any leaks, and most of us...
Well, there are leaks, so someone's saying something to someone.
I agree. I regret that there are those leaks, but I think what should happen is these witnesses should come, they should share their testimony, they shouldn't have leaks about that, and then there's going to be a formal proceeding in the Judiciary Committee where it will be public, where it will be debated, where all of the testimony will be out there for people to evaluate. And the central evidence is already out there. You have the president actually bragging about asking Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and his son. So I don't think the facts are really at dispute here. It's more a question of values.
Would you call back some of those witnesses? Do you need them to speak publicly themselves instead of just reading out a transcript?
If there was a need, I mean, if there was a real sense that the case required that. My sense is a lot of the evidence, as Brad Sherman said, is already there, and there may not be a need. But if there is a need, or if Republicans believe that they want to call one or two of those witnesses back, that's fine and appropriate at the time of the judiciary hearing, which will be the public hearings. But it's certainly not appropriate right now where we're building the evidence. And remember, in Watergate, or even in the case of Bill Clinton, you had special prosecutors who did this investigation behind closed doors so people felt comfortable sharing the truth. Here you don't have a special prosecutor when it comes to Ukraine. You had Bob Mueller. He's no longer doing the job. So we have to have that investigation, and I think it's better that you don't have the Democrats trying to politicize it or get a sensational headline.
Congressman Ro Khanna, Congressman, thank you very much.